What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today I'm going to do a video where I'm going to explain how the Trump campaign's strategy is kind of backfiring for conservatives and down ballot Republicans. And I'm really not going to try to be biased, but I'm just kind of going to try to explain something that I think that everyone, whether you're liberal or conservative, can agree with. And I'm not going to use the screen, but I'm just going to kind of use my beautiful face here with my American flag in the background. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So let's just dive right in. So what I've noticed, especially more in the 2020 presidential campaign, as Donald Trump's poll numbers have gone down, and as his re-election his chances to be reelected have become a little bit more uncertain, that Donald Trump has increasingly tried to attach himself to things that are more popular among the American people. So I definitely think that the Democrats have gotten more radical in the age of Trump, and that they've become emboldened, that they feel very, very strongly that Donald Trump is kind of this boogeyman, and that increasingly the Democratic mainstream has been more influenced by kind of this, I would kind of say the Twitter woke liberals that tend to be young and actually more white, which is pretty interesting. That they don't seem to be as diverse. So I think the most recent example of like where I've seen this is after George Floyd's death, which was a tragedy, of course, but there was a lot of energy in the Democratic Party, or there was a lot of grassroots energy that typically came from young people, and we saw it like in the streets with these protests, mostly peaceful. Some did turn violent. But what a lot of things have come out of George Floyd's death that extend a lot beyond this specific instance of police brutality. You've seen calls to defund the police, abolish the police, tear down Confederate monuments, tear down monuments of Christopher Columbus, even George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, even Abraham Lincoln. I've seen sometimes. Even some people are calling Mount Rushmore racist now. Trying to think of some other things. Oh, like the Aunt Jemima syrup, her face is taken off. The Washington Redskins is going to change their names, and I want to kind of explain why I think that Trump can actually kind of induce these changes. So most people do want to see Mount Rushmore to stay there. They don't think that Mount Rushmore is implicitly racist. I mean, you saw as recently as 2016 when Bernie was running for president, and he went to Mount Rushmore and says, this is one of our great monuments in American history. It really makes me proud to be an American. And now you see op-eds in the Washington Post and New York Times saying that, look, even even Mount Rushmore has to go, which is kind of ironic, I think, because that the Washington Post does have George Washington in its name, who was a slave owner. So you saw on July the 3rd that Donald Trump did a speech at Mount Rushmore, basically defending Mount Rushmore, defending our founding fathers, saying that they should be they're heroes, and that they should be idolized, not demonized, which I think most Americans would agree with. We look at polls, just overall, 80+% of Americans don't want to defund the police. While the needle has changed on some issues, like more people feel more comfortable saying Black Lives Matter. Like the approval rating of the Black Lives Matter movement has skyrocketed since George Floyd's death, because I definitely think that's become more mainstream when in 2016 it hasn't. And I definitely think that Trump has had something to do with it. I think him kind of pushing back on some of these things has made more people be more open to be like, look, this isn't necessarily a left-right issue. But I think when Trump attaches himself to things like Mount Rushmore or the statues of George Washington, he's even talked about bringing some monuments and statues to his rallies, they will become increasingly more politicized. And I think that you're more likely to see things like statues of George Washington, Christopher Columbus, and Thomas Jefferson come down. When Barack Obama was president, the debate was on Confederate statues, whether they should come up. But now that Trump is president, it's moved so much farther to the left, I would say. So I think whenever Trump touches anything, it instantly becomes politicized. And I actually think this is at the detriment of conservatives and Republicans and traditionalists who want to see these monuments stay up, who maybe are kind of worried that history is going to be whitewashed and it's going to be destroyed, maybe. Maybe that's a little bit of hyperbole. But I think when you see Trump saying, look, the Democrats, they want to defund the police. They want to, in his most recent tweet, said, abolish the suburbs. I mean, no one was even talking about abolishing the suburbs. But I think that now that Trump has mentioned, more people, just because they oppose Trump, they're going to be like, well, maybe abolishing the suburbs are a good idea. So I think Trump is increasingly, as he's kind of falling down the polls, he's going to, which is a smart move for Trump. I mean, I don't blame Trump for doing this, because if the Trump campaign is simply only worried about Trump winning in 2020, this is a great strategy for them. I mean, they're going to attach themselves to like Mount Rushmore. They're going to stand by the police because most people don't want to abolish the police, or they're going to praise figures like Abraham Lincoln. The Trump campaign's going to put themselves in contrast to anything that kind of the fringe group on the left is doing. But I think in response to that, because mainstream Democrats hate Trump so much, they're more likely to just do anything in opposition to Trump. So we've seen this with the coronavirus drug hydroxychloroquine. So Trump very early on said that he believed in the drug. And this was probably before a lot of science had come out about it. I think there were some scientists that were saying, hey, look, this drug works. We might as well use it because there's not any huge side effects for it. While some scientists were saying, well, let's wait and let's study this and do it. And you saw the mainstream media and the Democrats just completely go against the drug hydroxychloroquine while Trump was just going for it. And the only reason that the media was talking about hydroxychloroquine was because Trump was completely endorsed it. I do think his endorsement was a little bit premature. But as a result, you've seen that the Democrats and the mainstream media have been completely against it before the scientific consensus has even come out. And I've watched programs and Democratic politicians even like talk about that they definitely know that hydroxychloroquine doesn't work, even though that the science hasn't come out on it. So both sides definitely were messing up then too. And then one other example I think is with the Supreme Court. So you would think with a 5-4 majority for conservatives that they would have more conservative rulings. But right now, you've seen in the 2020 SCOTUS cycle that Trump has lost a lot of the times. Do I think that John Roberts has turned to be a liberal on the Supreme Court? No. I think he's increasingly more of a swing justice. But I think when if Joe Biden wins president, becomes president in 2020, that you will see more conservative more conservative justices. So I think that Trump is trying to be a conservative, but trying to champion some of these issues is actually kind of backfiring and making his presidency. I think there's been more liberal wins in some respects than there was in the 8 years that Barack Obama was president. And I think that's kind of how our political system is supposed to function. I mean, you're supposed to have backlash to the president, but I mean, I could go on and talk about how fiscally we were more conservative in the last 4 years that Barack Obama was president than the past 4 years with Trump. But I think it is really interesting that as we see, I think the Trump campaign start to become more desperate. They're going to attach these things to things that aren't inherently political, but they're going to become political. And I think it may be at the detriment of conservatives. So I want to end the video here, but please let me know what you think about this video, whether you want me to do more videos like this, and whether you agree with kind of my main premise that the Trump campaign is kind of backfiring by championing these issues that are actually just going to become more toxic because Trump is handling them. So I think Trump is just such a polarizing figure now that whatever issues he tries to champion, that they're going to backfire and it might help liberals out. So please let me know what you think of this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and be on the lookout for a new video tomorrow. Thanks.